Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're about to start another episode of Express Yourself. This is going to be the second episode in a series of three where we take a look at the various functions and expressions that are available in the Informatica Cloud product. Now, today we've got a particular focus on string functions. Okay, so if you're looking at doing things like concatenating strings together, if you want to do different types of logical operations where you search for certain values inside your strings, okay, or maybe you just want to actually split strings up into different pieces of information, you're going to find out how we can actually do that today with Informatica Cloud and ensure that your data ends up in Salesforce in the correct format. Okay, so before we jump in, if you want to follow along with the exercises and try out some of the functions that we're going to be doing today, you are going to need an Informatica Cloud account. So you can sign up for one of these at www.informaticacloud.com. There is a free 30-day trial where you will have the full capabilities of the product at your disposal. Another good thing to have is a Salesforce account. So again, you can sign up for a free developer account at the developer.force.com URL. And then you just need some account data. Okay, so today I've got a little CSV with some random account details that I will be using for the exercises we will go through today. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to show you is the actual account data that I have. So currently, I am actually loading a bunch of various account details into a Salesforce org. There's nothing particularly fantastic there. This is pretty much the same exercise that we've gone through for our previous episodes and our previous webinars. We've constantly been working with this data. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about how I actually loaded that data, just take a look at one of our previous episodes that we have on our YouTube channel. Okay, so let's jump into the actual services. All right, so we're now on the third actual function in here, string functions. Okay, so I'll just jump straight to step number 5, the field mappings. Okay, and when that comes up, we can start looking at all of the different values that we're using. Okay, now what I've done here is I've actually just tried to glue a lot of the different pieces of information from our account information that's coming from that CSV file and going into Salesforce. So looking at the concat function initially, we just have concat, the values, and then we're actually going to see the results of that. Okay, so let's go and have a look at what's going on in Salesforce. So now we've got a list of all the different expressions and all the results of those expressions. So the first one we're going to look at is called the replace CHR function. Now that is actually an abbreviation for character. So what we're actually doing is we're saying, please replace a specific character within the incoming value. So the incoming value was Hamleys of London. So that is actually the account name of this particular Salesforce object. And inside that value, we've said, okay, I want you to actually replace all of the O values with a dash and replace all of the spaces with a null value. So that means that null value means that there is no value. So any spaces get removed, any O's get removed, and you end up with a value where you just have Hamleys of London with all the O's gone and all the spaces removed. Now this is useful for things like building maybe ID codes. Perhaps you want to remove the white space off the end of specific strings, or you may have incorrect spellings or codes or special characters in your incoming values that you may not need in Salesforce. So this is quite a handy function for that. So let's take a look at that function and see how we did that. So looking at the replace char function, I'm just going to open up the expression editor, and in there we've actually got a replace char wrapped inside a replace char function. Now, if we came in here for the first time and we started off with, a brand new replace char function, we would go to our character functions group. We would find and locate the replace char value, okay? And then going through all of the different arguments, we just need to say 0 because we don't want this to be case sensitive. So if it's true, it's case sensitive, meaning that uppercase characters would only match uppercase characters, whereas if it's false, it will match uppercase or lowercase characters. And that's obviously for alphabetical characters. Now, we don't want any case sensitivity. We then say, okay, char1 is actually going to be the incoming value that we want to scan. So that would be the Hamleys of London string that we want to actually make the changes on. So if I, for instance, put in something in here like, let's type in Hamleys of London. Okay, so that would be your incoming value. The second character parameter is going to be the actual string that you want to find. So what is it that you want to replace? Okay, so we can put in here a character and say, all right, I actually want you to find all of the space characters. So I've actually just left a white space inside there. And then the third parameter is going to be the actual result. What do you want to replace it with? All right, so if I said, well, I want to replace it with a, let's say a plus symbol. All right, the actual results of that would actually be Hamleys plus of plus London. Oh, little plus didn't come through there. Now you can start to see how we can actually use this function to clean up a lot of your data. So what I've actually done in this example is I've said first replace the char. Okay, I'm just going to highlight that so you can see it clearly. So I've said replace char with the case-sensitive flag unset of the account name, remove any white space, and just put blank spaces. I've then taken the results of this expression and put it inside another replace char. Okay, so the value of this replace char is now inside another replace char function, and I'm saying, please take the result of that function and then again replace the O's with dashes. Okay, and that's how we end up with the results of Hamleys of London with the O's gone and the spaces gone. Okay, so nice and simple function. Okay, you're going to find now after seeing the replace char function, a lot of the other string functions are very, very similar. So they're quite easy to get into. Okay, so once you've done one, you'll find that it's, you can pretty much get along with the rest of them. Now, the next function, the concat function, is an ability where you actually concatenate different values together. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken an ID, I've taken the Hamleys of London account name, and in this instance, I've actually used the replace char to remove any spaces at the same time, and then I've concatenated the actual address of this account. Okay, let's have a look and see what that looks like. All right, so go find the concat function and open up the expression, and inside there we can see if I were to actually go and find the concat function, okay, bring that up, you can see it's very simple. Literally you have character 1, okay, character 2, and what actually happens is character 2 is added onto character 1 and then it's returned as a single value. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, concat the account number, all right? We just look at this value over here, concat account number with the results of the replace char function. So if you remember, we did replace char in a little previous exercise. So the results of that will be concatenated to the account number, and then take the results of that concatenation and concatenate it again to the city. So if we wanted to get even more formal, we could do something like, let's take the results of replace char and let's do upper. I think it is uppercase is the correct function. Yep, it's upper. So I'm going to say upper the whole value, and then I'm going to do upper the whole value for city. Okay, I could actually, instead of doing this for individual values, I could actually just do it for the entire result. Okay, so that would actually probably be more efficient. So we'll get rid of that, and then we'll just do an upper for the entire concatenation result. Okay, so I'll just validate that. Yep, that's validated. Okay, and I'll save this particular example, and then we'll just run that and see the results of that uppercase. So let me just fire that off. Cool, so that function has now completed. So let's take a look at the results inside Salesforce for our concat function. Okay, just wait for that to come up. And straight away we see we've had, again, the code, the account code, the actual name, Hamleys of London, okay, and then London. And then again, we've actually jumped ahead to our next function. We've done an uppercase on the entire value. Okay, so very nice way to make consistent codes and strings and manipulate them in the way that you need. Upper, we've already seen what that does. It takes the entire value that's coming in and it returns the uppercase value of alphabetical characters. Lower actually works in the opposite way to upper. It actually returns the lowercase value of any alphabetical characters. So those two are nice and easy, pretty simple to use. Now, the next one, the length function, is a little bit confusing. A lot of people ask the first time they see this, why would they need to know the length of an actual value of a string? Now, straight off, if you're just looking at something like this and you're saying, okay, well, I know that the word consumer toys has 13 characters in it, it's not very interesting. Okay, but we're going to see in a later example where we actually need to break up a string into different parts. So if we were to take a full name, for instance, and you want to break that full name into two parts, that length function actually becomes very, very critical to ensure that you break certain parts of the string. It's also a good way to say, okay, if a string can only ever be so many characters long, you can use that function to actually check and do a bit of logical preparation. Okay, so let's move along from the length result and let's look at the in result. Now, in is quite interesting. If you come from a software development background, you'll more than likely have seen functions like index of or contains or something like that in C# or Java or one of those similar languages. Now, the in function in Informatica is slightly different. What it actually does is it returns the index in a list of values. So let's take a look and see what I mean by that. Alright, so I'll just open up that field mapping and we'll go down to that in function. Okay, so here's our in result. Now, the way we actually use this in something like Informatica Cloud is if you had a list of values that were actually coming into your function and you wanted to identify or translate that list of values into an ID or something of that nature. Now, if we had a list such as consumer toys, engineering, entertainment, and motoring, and we wanted to know, okay, which value that I'm passing into this function matches one of these values and give me the index. So if it matches consumer toys, give me 1. If it's engineering, give me a 2. If it's entertainment, give me a 3, and so on and so forth. So you can create very, very long lists of values, okay, and have these dynamically loaded into this function, and then pass in your incoming value, and then actually have the index returned. So whilst you may not use this in a human context, it's very, very good for maintaining some kind of relationship between a description and a value. One of the problems that you may have faced is if you then decide to change the wording or the description of a value, it then becomes very, very hard to use that value as an identifier because it would essentially break your entire database. So what you do is you use a unique ID, like a number. So that's something that this function would be used for. Not too exciting to show, but it nevertheless has its purposes. Okay, so we won't delve any more into the in function. Now, looking at the in-string function, this is actually something a little bit more interesting that we can use in a lot of places. The in-string function builds onto that in function where it uses the string, all right, as your index of values. And then what it does is it returns the position in that string that you find the value that you're searching for. Okay, now, if I haven't made myself clearly, let's actually illustrate that a little bit more in the actual the expression editor. So let's open up the in-string expression. And what I'm actually doing is I'm passing in as my first value the lowercase value, okay, of industry. Okay, so that first parameter is all about this is what I want to search inside. So you could pass through a large paragraph, a large sentence, maybe even just a name, and say, okay, I want you to search inside this value for a specific result. Okay, now the next parameter is my toys value. So I'm actually searching for appearance or occurrence of the string toys inside the industry value. Okay, now what it's actually going to do is, if we for instance have consumer, so let's say consumer toys. Okay, so that is your string. Now imagine there's no spaces in there. I've actually just done this to illustrate the point. Position number 1 is going to be associated with the C. Position 2, the 0. Position 3 will be the N. Position 4 is the U. And so on and so forth. So you can carry on like this. Okay, 9. Okay, and then, okay, so I may have missed a few there, but I think that should illustrate the idea quite well. So what we do here is we're saying, give me the position of the string toys. So it's actually going to return the position of this T function, this T. So from T, if the next value matches O, Y, S, that's actually the position of that string. Now this is very powerful because now if we want to, for instance, say, all right, I actually just want to cut this string out and use that value. So say it's a name, say the person has a double-barreled name and you only ever want the first parts of their name, you can then do that and actually split things up. Okay, so let's look at the results of that function. Jump back into Salesforce, and looking at that, we can see the position is actually 10. So for consumer toys, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. That is where the actual toys value resides. Now, all of these functions that we've been looking at are all actually going to be used now in our next function, which is the substring function. So after you've found exactly the position of the value that you want to cut or the length of the string, you can start using the substring function in much more interesting ways. Now this sub-str is standing for substring. So pull out a smaller string from within this actual long string that I'm working with. Now what I'm doing here in the substring function, I'm actually passing in my name. So I've got Steve Mitchell. Okay, so Steve space Mitchell. And what I'm actually looking to do is to split that up into a first name and last name variable. You may want to do this because you may want to send out emails or marketing communications to your customers, and you may only want to use the last name of that actual contact. You may also want to just use the initials, so you may say s.mitchell. So you can use the substring now to actually chop up the name in the interesting way that you can. So let's have a look at that substring, and we should be wrapping up soon. All right, so let's go to substring. Where are you? So we've got last name field, and we have a first name field. And if I open that up, we can see I'm using the substring function. If you get confused or if you need to refer to what arguments actually are inputted into the substring function, just take a look under our character functions, and then you will actually find the sub-str function and then get a short description of the syntax. So the first value that we put in there is the entire string that we want to actually remove some values from. So I've inputted the full name value, the next value or the next parameter is going to be where should I start cutting these values from. So if I had Steve Mitchell over here, in this value I'm going to say please start from this position. Okay, start cutting from the S onwards. Now what I could do is the last value in here is actually optional. So I could actually say, all right, just cut everything from 0. And that would return the entire string. Obviously, we actually want to remove just the first name. So what I do here is I say, use the inString function, and again, pass in the full name value, and give me the position of the first space character. Okay, so that's going to give me the position of that space. So that would be then, the result is going to be cut from 0, the S, all right, and then it's going to go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is the position of the space, and actually return that value, Steve, for me. Very, very nice and straightforward, very, very easy to do. So anybody can have a play with these and see the results of using these types of functions. So that is the first name. Now looking at the last name, we do the opposite. We actually say, okay, substring the full name, and then what I want you to do is use the inString function, and we're actually only passing through one value this time around. We're saying, give me the location of that space, okay, and plus 1 to the index. So don't include that first space, jump over to the next character and cut to the end of the string. So this will return my last name. So one last time, just revise that. Full name, that's the full name value that you're going in. The second value is the inString, which actually is searching for the index of a particular string, and then it will return those results. Okay, now if we take a look at the results of those functions, first name actually returns Steve. All right, so we have nice, clean, and then last name is Mitchell. So very, very quick and easy and fantastic way to break up strings with Informatica Cloud. All right, guys. So that actually wraps up today's episode. Hoping to look at regular expressions in a following episode. And if you have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comments section below.